The morning sun painted the Korean countryside in golden light as Taeho walked through his ranch. His boots crunched softly on the frost-covered grass. At 62 years old, he had been working this land for over 30 years. The ranch was far from any city, nestled between rolling hills and thick forests. Most people thought he was crazy for living so far from civilization, but Taeho loved the peace and quiet. He stopped near the cattle pen and counted his animals, 23. Cows all healthy and strong. His automated feeding system had already given them breakfast. The solar panels on his barn roof gleamed in the sunlight, powering all the equipment he needed to run the ranch alone. Taeho pulled out his tablet to check the morning reports. Everything looked normal. The weather satellite showed clear skies for the next 3 days. His security sensors showed no movement except for wild animals in the forest. His cattle were calm and content, but something felt different today. He could not explain it, but the air seemed to buzz with energy. The hair on his arms stood up slightly, like before a thunderstorm. Yet the sky was perfectly clear. His cattle were acting strange too. They kept looking toward the back pasture and making nervous sounds. Taeho walked toward the area that seemed to worry his animals. The back pasture was the largest part of his ranch, a wide field that stretched almost to the forest edge. He rarely used it except for grazing in the summer. Now it was just empty grass and a few scattered rocks. As he got closer, his tablet started beeping. The security system was picking up something unusual. The energy readings were jumping wildly. The numbers made no sense. According to his equipment, there was something massive moving toward his ranch, but he could see nothing. The beeping got faster. The numbers got higher. Taeho looked around nervously. He had lived here for decades and never seen anything like this. His defense system was military grade, left over from his days in the army. It could detect aircraft, vehicles, even people walking through the forest, but this was different. The readings showed something huge, maybe the size of a building, but completely invisible. Then the air started to shimmer. At first, Taeho thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. The empty space above the back pasture began to ripple like water. The shimmer grew brighter and larger, spreading out in a perfect circle about 10 meters wide. His tablet was screaming warnings now. The energy readings were off the charts. The defense system was asking if he wanted to activate emergency protocols and call for military backup. Taeho stared at the impossible sight. The shimmering air was turning into something that looked like a doorway. Through the ripples he could see flashes of another place. Strange lights danced in what looked like a red sky. Crystal formations jutted out of rocky ground. It was like looking through a window into another world. Then something came through. The first creature to emerge was enormous. It was easily the size of a small airplane, with scales that shifted between deep blue and silver in the sunlight. Its body was long and elegant, with 4 powerful legs and wings that folded against its back. Its head was noble and intelligent, with large eyes that glowed like amber jewels. A dragon. An actual dragon. Taeho stood frozen in shock. Dragons were supposed to be myths, stories from old books and movies. But here was one, real and breathing, standing in his pasture. The dragon was hurt. Its left wing hung at an odd angle, and several of its scales were cracked and bleeding. It moved slowly, like every step caused pain. A second dragon followed, smaller but more heavily injured. This one was darker, with scales of deep green and gold. It was breathing hard and had a large wound on its side. When it tried to roar, only a weak sound came out. Then came the third dragon, much smaller than the other two. This one was young, probably a child. Its scales were bright purple and pink, and it stayed close to the larger dragons. Even though it was not hurt like the others, it looked scared and tired. The family of dragons collapsed near the edge of the pasture. The shimming doorway behind them flickered and began to fade. Through the closing portal, Taeho could see fires burning in that other world. Dark shapes moved through the red sky, and the crystal formations were cracking and falling. The portal snapped shut with a sound like thunder. The dragons were now stranded in his pasture. Taeho realized he was still holding his tablet. The defense System was still asking for orders. His finger hovered over the emergency button that would call the military. One touch would bring helicopters, soldiers, and scientists within an hour, but as he looked at the three dragons, he saw something that made him hesitate. The way the two larger dragons positioned themselves protectively around the smaller one. The way they looked around with fear and exhaustion in their eyes. The way the injured one kept trying to stay alert despite its pain. They were not monsters. They were a family, and they were in trouble. The largest dragon, the blue and silver one, noticed Tejo watching. It made a sound that was almost musical, like wind chimes mixed with a whale song. The sound was beautiful but sad. Tejo did not understand the language, but he understood the emotion. They were asking for help. He thought about his options. If he called the military, these creatures would probably end up in laboratories. Scientists would study them, test them, maybe hurt them more. They would become property of the government, locked away from the world, but if he helped them himself, he would be breaking countless laws. Hiding alien life forms was probably treason. His quiet life on the ranch would be over forever. The young dragon made a small, frightened sound. It was shivering despite the warm morning sun. Te-ho made his choice. He put away his tablet without pressing the emergency button. Instead, he walked slowly toward the dragon family, his hands visible and empty. The largest dragon watched him approach but did not move to attack. When Tejo got close enough, he could see intelligence in its amber eyes. This was not a simple animal. This creature was thinking, judging, hoping. Tejo stopped a few meters away and did the only thing he could think of. He bowed deeply, the way his grandfather had taught him to show respect to honored guests. When he looked up, the dragon was bowing back. At that moment, Tejo knew his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a farmer living alone on a remote ranch. He was now the protector of three dragons from another world, and somehow he had to figure out how to keep them safe. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, and the golden light fell on an impossible scene, a human farmer and a family of dragons meeting for the first time in a pasture that had suddenly become the most important place on Earth. 3 days had passed since the dragons arrived at Tejo's ranch. The farmer had barely slept during that time. He spent his hours watching over his unexpected guests and trying to figure out what to do next. The dragons had not moved far from where they first appeared. The largest one, which Tejo had started calling Mother Dragon, was clearly the leader of the family. She was protective and careful, always watching for danger. The second dragon, darker and more injured, seemed to be the father. The smallest one was definitely their child, curious but scared. Tejo had tried to help them as best he could. He brought water in large containers and offered them food from his farm. The dragons were grateful but ate very little. They seemed to survive on something other than regular food, though Tejo could not figure out what. On the third evening, as he sat watching the dragon family from a safe distance, Tejo made a decision. He needed help, and there was only one person he trusted completely. He pulled out his phone and called his daughter. So Young lived in Seoul, working as a scientist for the Terran Research Institute. She was one of the smartest people Tejo knew. And more importantly, she was family. If anyone could help him understand these creatures, it was her. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. "Father, is everything okay? You never call this late?" Tejo looked at the dragons resting in his pasture. "So Young, I need you to come to the ranch, tomorrow if possible. And bring your scientific equipment. What happened? Are you hurt?" "I am fine, but I have discovered something that will change everything. I cannot explain over the phone. You have to see it yourself." So Young was quiet for a moment. She knew her father well. He was not the type to exaggerate or make up stories. "I will drive up first thing in the morning." "Should I bring anything special?" "Bring equipment to study unknown life forms. And So Young, tell no one where you are going. This must stay secret until we understand what we are dealing with." The next morning, So Young arrived at the ranch in her research van. She was a tall woman of 35 with her father's practical nature and her mother's sharp intelligence. She had brought cases of scientific instruments and a worried expression. Father, what is going on? Your message scared me. Teho led her toward the back pasture. I found visitors. They are not from Earth. So Young laughed nervously. Father, what are you talking about? Then she saw them. The dragon family was awake and alert in the morning sun. Mother Dragon lifted her great head as the two humans approached. Her amber eyes studied So Young carefully. So Young stopped walking. Her mouth fell open. All her scientific training could not prepare her for what she was seeing. Those are dragons. Actual dragons. Yes, they came through some kind of doorway 3 days ago. They are hurt and need help. So Young stared at the magnificent creatures. Her scientist mind began working immediately. How is this possible? Where did they come from? How do they fly with those wings? What do they eat? I was hoping you could help me answer those questions. For the next several hours, So Young set up her equipment at a respectful distance from the dragons. She used scanners, cameras, and sensors to study them without getting too close. The dragons seemed to understand that she was trying to help. They stayed calm and even posed when she needed better angles for her readings. The results amazed her. Father, these creatures are incredible. Their bones are hollow like bird bones, but much stronger. Their scales can change temperature to help them regulate body heat, and their brains are huge. The neural activity I am reading suggests intelligence, equal to or greater than humans. As if responding to her words, Mother Dragon made a series of musical sounds. The translator device So Young had brought began working, picking up patterns in the dragon's communication. The sounds are language, So Young said excitedly. Complex language with grammar and structure. They are trying to talk to us. Teho knelt down near Mother Dragon. Can you understand us? The dragon made more sounds. The translator displayed broken words on its screen. Help, home, destroyed, destroyed, dung one. Protect, So Young gasped. They are refugees. Something destroyed their home, and they escaped here to protect their child. Over the next few days, communication improved. The dragons learned some Korean words while So Young programmed better translation software. Slowly, their story emerged. The dragon family came from a place they called the Crystal Realm. It was a dimension where dragons lived in cities, made of living crystal that floated in seas of energy. Their civilization was ancient and peaceful, focused on art, music, and the study of dimensional science, but something terrible had invaded their realm. Dark creatures that consumed everything they touched, turning beautiful crystal cities into ash and void. The war had lasted for years, but the dragons were losing. These three were among the last survivors. The young dragon, who they learned was named Nyx, was especially curious about human technology. While her parents rested and healed, she explored the ranch. She was fascinated by simple machines like tractors and generators. One morning, Teho found that his old tractor was running better than it had in years. Nyx had somehow improved its engine efficiency by touching various parts. She had not broken anything or changed the basic design. She had simply made it work better. How did she do that? So Young asked, studying the tractor with her instruments. She understands machines at a molecular level, So Young realized. She can see how energy flows through them and optimize the connections. This discovery led to more experiments. With careful supervision, Nyx began improving other equipment around the ranch. Solar panels produced more power. Water pumps moved more efficiently. Even the internet connection became faster and more stable, but the improvements created a new problem. Satellites were beginning to notice unusual energy patterns coming from the ranch. Government monitoring systems were designed to detect exactly this kind of anomaly. We need to hide them better, So Young told her father. The energy signatures are getting too strong to ignore. That evening they explored the cave system beneath the ranch. Teho had always known about the caves but never explored them deeply. They were larger than expected, with multiple chambers connected by natural tunnels. This could work, So Young said, shining her flashlight around the largest cavern. We can set up a proper shelter down here. The rock will block most energy. Readings from satellites The dragons agreed to move underground during the day. Mother Dragon explained that her people originally lived in crystal caves, so the environment felt familiar and safe. As they prepared the cave system, So Young made another important discovery. The spot where the dragons first appeared was not random. The local bedrock contained unusual minerals that naturally focused dimensional energy. That was why the portal had opened there. "This location is special," she told her father. "It might be the only place on Earth where interdimensional travel is possible." That night, as they worked to create a hidden sanctuary for their dragon guests, Taeho realized that his quiet life was over forever. But looking at Nyx playing with his farm equipment and her parents slowly recovering from their injuries, he felt good about his choice. He was no longer just a farmer. He was now the guardian of Earth's first interdimensional refugees. And somehow that felt like the most important job he had ever had. The secret was safe for now, but Taeho knew it could not stay hidden forever. Change was coming to his ranch, whether he was ready for it or not. 2 weeks had passed since the dragons moved into the cave system beneath Taeho's ranch. The arrangement was working well. During the day, the dragon family stayed hidden underground where satellite sensors could not detect them. At night, they emerged to stretch their wings and help with ranch work. Nyx had become especially helpful. The young dragon could fix almost any machine just by touching it. She had improved every piece of equipment on the ranch, making them run cleaner, quieter, and more efficiently. Taeho's energy bills had dropped to almost nothing, and his productivity had doubled. So Young visited every few days, bringing supplies and studying the dragon's amazing abilities. She was learning their language quickly and had become their main translator. The dragon parents, Valara and Necaron, shared stories of their lost world and taught her their dimensional science. Everything seemed perfect until the solar storm hit. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Space weather monitors had predicted a mild solar event, nothing that should affect Earth's technology. But this storm was stronger than expected. Electromagnetic pulses swept across the planet, disrupting satellites and power grids. At the ranch, the solar storm overloaded the cloaking system So Young had installed around the caves. For exactly 17 minutes, the energy shields that hid the dragons were completely down. 17 minutes was enough. Ken Jinwoo Park was monitoring satellite feeds from his station at the Korean Space Defense Unit when the anomaly appeared on his screen. For those 17 minutes, his instruments detected massive life forms and impossible energy readings coming from a remote ranch in the countryside. Jin-Woo had been investigating strange reports from that area for weeks. Pilots flying over the region reported brief equipment malfunctions. Weather satellites showed unusual energy patterns that disappeared as quickly as they appeared. Local wildlife was acting strangely, and there had been several sightings of unexplained lights in the sky. Now he had proof that something extraordinary was happening at the ranch belonging to someone named Lee Tae-ho. Jinwoo was a careful man. At 38 years old, he had spent 15 years in military service and had learned not to jump to conclusions. But the readings from the solar storm incident were impossible to ignore. The energy signatures suggested technology far beyond anything humans possessed. He gathered a small team of trusted officers and scientists. There was Dr. Haijin Choi, his science officer and childhood friend from the same village where Taeho lived. There was Sergeant Min-Soo Kim, an expert in first contact protocols. And there was Lieutenant Subin Lee, a communications specialist. "We need to investigate this carefully," Jinwoo told his team as they prepared to visit the ranch. "If what we detected is real, this could be the most important discovery in human history, but we go in peaceful. No weapons, no aggression. We are researchers, not raiders." The next morning, Jinwoo's team arrived at Taeho's ranch in a single, unmarked vehicle. They found the old farmer working in his vegetable garden, acting as if nothing unusual had ever happened on his property. "Mr. Lee Tae-ho?" Jinwoo approached politely. "I am Captain Park. Jinwoo from the Space Defense Unit. We would like to speak with you about some unusual readings our satellites detected in this area." Taeho looked up from his plants. He had been expecting this visit. The solar storm had ruined everything, and now the secret was out. What kind of readings? Energy signatures that suggest the presence of unknown technology or life forms. Would you mind if we looked around? Teho considered his options. He could deny everything and try to hide the dragons, but these people seemed intelligent and determined. They would find the truth eventually. Or he could trust them and hope they would be reasonable. Before you look around, Teho said, I need to ask you something. If you found people who needed help, people who were hurt and scared, and far from home, what would you do? Dr. Hyjin stepped forward. She recognized Teho from her childhood. Uncle Teho, it is me, Hyjin. I used to visit your ranch with my family when I was little. You taught me how to ride horses, Teho smiled. Little Hyjin, you grew up to be a scientist, just like you always said you would. Yes, and I became a scientist because I believe in helping others learn and grow. If someone needed help, I would do everything I could to protect them, Teho nodded. Then follow me. But promise me you will keep an open mind about what you are going to see. He led the military team toward the back pasture. As they walked, he told them the story of what had happened 2 weeks earlier. The portal, the dragon family, their injuries and desperate escape from a dying world. Dragons? Sergeant Minsu said. Sir, are you saying you have actual dragons living on your ranch? I am saying I have 3 refugees from another dimension who need help and protection. They reached the entrance to the cave system. Teho called down into the darkness in the musical language he had learned from the dragons. Sounds echoed back up, like wind chimes mixed with whale songs. Captain Jinwoo felt his heart racing. Those were not human sounds. Valara emerged first, moving slowly and carefully. She was magnificent in the afternoon sunlight, her blue and silver scales gleaming like jewels. Her amber eyes studied the new humans with intelligent curiosity. Dr. Hyjin gasped. She is beautiful. Dikaron followed, darker and more cautious. He positioned himself protectively near his mate, ready to defend her if necessary. His green and gold scales rippled with tension. Finally, Nyx bounded out of the cave with the enthusiasm of youth. She had no fear of the new humans and immediately began examining their equipment with curious eyes. Incredible, Lieutenant Subin whispered. They are real. Captain Jinwoo stood frozen in amazement. Everything Teho had told them was true. These were living, breathing dragons from another world. Valara made a series of sounds. Teho translated. She says welcome to her family's temporary home. She hopes you come in peace. We do, Jinwoo replied. He bowed respectfully. Following Teho's example from his first meeting with the dragons, over the next few hours, the dragon family shared their story with the military team. Using the translation equipment So Young had built, they explained their escape from the Crystal Realm and the terrible enemy that had destroyed their world. But then Valara revealed something that changed everything. The Dark Ones do not stop, she said through the translator. They eat worlds, then move to the next. They consume the barriers between dimensions until nothing is left. What are you saying? Dr. Hyjin asked with growing fear. Your world is next. The portal we used to escape has made your dimension visible to them. They will come here within 1 year, maybe less. The silence that followed was deafening. Captain Jinwoo felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Are you telling us that Earth is going to be invaded by the same creatures that destroyed your world? Yes, but there is hope. We escaped not just to save ourselves, but to warn you. Together, our peoples might be able to fight them. What do these creatures want? Sergeant Minsu asked. CK single quote Ron answered. They want everything. Every star, every planet, every living thing. They do not conquer or enslave. They simply consume until nothing remains. Dr. Hyjin looked at her childhood friend Teho. Uncle, do you understand what this means? Teho nodded grimly. It means we are all in this together now, human and dragon working as one, or we all die as enemies. Captain Jinwoo made a decision that would change the course of human history. Mr. Lee, your secret is safe with us. But we need to prepare. If what they are telling us is true, Earth needs to get ready for war. As the sun set over the ranch, Two species that had never met before began planning to defend their worlds against an enemy that had already destroyed countless civilizations. The quiet life on Tejo's ranch was over forever. But perhaps that was exactly what Earth needed. 3 months had passed since Captain Jinwoo discovered the dragon family at Tejo's ranch. The secret was no longer just between a farmer and his daughter. Now it involved some of the highest levels of Earth's defense forces. Admiral Park Min-ho, commander of the Earth Defense Fleet, had been the hardest person to convince. When Jinwoo first reported the discovery of interdimensional refugees, the admiral thought his captain had suffered a nervous breakdown. "Dragons, Jinwoo? Really? You want me to believe we have mythical creatures living on a farm?" But when Admiral Minho visited the ranch and saw Thekaron demonstrate dimensional manipulation by opening a small portal to show the burned remains of the crystal realm, the skepticism vanished immediately. "Dear God," the admiral whispered, staring through the window into a dead world. "They are telling the truth." Within days, the ranch had transformed into Earth's most secret research facility. Military engineers built underground laboratories that connected to the natural cave system. Scientists from around the world were quietly recruited and brought to the site under maximum security. Dr. Seon-ho Kwon was one of those scientists. He had once designed weapons for the military, but quit years ago to become a peace activist. Now, faced with the extinction of both human and dragon civilizations, he reluctantly returned to his old work. "I swore I would never build weapons again," he told So Young as they watched Nyx teach human engineers how to think in multiple dimensions. "But this is different. We are not fighting other humans. We are fighting creatures that want to destroy everything." So Young nodded. "The dragons taught me that sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be ready for war." The collaboration between humans and dragons was producing incredible results. Villara showed human scientists how to create dimensional anchors, devices that could strengthen the barriers between worlds. Thekaron worked with engineers to design quantum shield generators that could protect entire cities, but it was young Nyx who made the biggest breakthroughs. Her natural ability to understand technology at the molecular level helped humans build things they had never imagined possible. "Look at this," Dr. Hyjin said, holding up a small device that looked like a crystal flower. "Nyx helped us create a biomechanical hybrid that can function in multiple dimensions at once. It can detect void creatures even when they are partially phased out of our reality." The device was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It pulsed with soft light and seemed to exist in several places simultaneously. "How does it work?" Admiral Minho asked. "It thinks like a dragon but builds like a human," Nyx explained through the translator. "Your people are very good at making many things quickly. My people are good at making things that work across dimensions. Together we make things that are both." The partnership was not without challenges. Dragons lived much longer than humans, and thought in terms of centuries rather than years. Humans were impatient and wanted immediate results. There were misunderstandings about technology, culture, and communication, but gradually, both species learned to work together. Humans taught dragons about mass production, systematic testing, and rapid innovation. Dragons taught humans about dimensional science, energy manipulation, and long-term thinking. Captain Jinwoo found himself coordinating between the two species. "The humans want to build 1,000 weapons immediately," he explained to Villara. "The dragons want to perfect one weapon over several years. We need to find a middle path." The solution came from an unexpected source. Tejo, the simple farmer who had started everything, suggested combining both approaches. "Build one perfect prototype with dragon precision," he said. "Then use human manufacturing to make thousands of copies quickly." This hybrid approach became the foundation of Earth's defense strategy. Dragon science provided the designs. Human industry provided mass production. The first major success was the dimensional fighter ships. These vessels could partially phase between dimensions, making them nearly impossible for conventional weapons to hit. They were armed with quantum disruptors that could damage void creatures even in their energy form. Lieutenant Commander Yujin Park, Jin Woo's younger sister, was selected to pilot the first prototype. She spent weeks training with Nyx, learning to think in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "It is like learning to see with your eyes closed," Yujin explained after her first successful flight. "You have to feel where you are in space and time and dimension all at once." As the months passed, more people learned the secret. Each new person had to be carefully chosen and thoroughly vetted. The circle of trust grew slowly but steadily. Dr. Ji-won Kim, a psychologist, was brought in to help humans and dragons understand each other better. She discovered that despite their different appearances, both species shared similar values about family, protection, and the future. "Humans and dragons both put their children first," she reported. "Both species will sacrifice themselves to protect the next generation. This shared value gives us a strong foundation for cooperation." The ranch continued to be the center of all activity. The original farmhouse became a command center. The barns were converted into manufacturing facilities. The caves housed both the dragon family and the most advanced laboratories on Earth, but perhaps the most important development was the friendship between Nyx and the human children from nearby villages. Dr. Haijin had convinced several families to let their children visit the ranch for special science education. These children, ages 8 to 12, adapted to the presence of dragons faster than any adult. They played games with Nyx, learned basic dragon language, and helped bridge the gap between species. Children do not have the fear that adults carry. Valara observed, "They see us as friends, not monsters." 10-year-old the Jin Li became especially close to Nyx. The human girl had a natural talent for dimensional thinking and could understand dragon concepts that confused trained scientists. "Nyx says the void creatures think like hungry ghosts," the Jin explained to a room full of adult researchers. "They do not plan or dream or hope. They just eat and eat until everything is gone." This insight led to a major breakthrough in defense strategy. If the void creatures operated purely on hunger instinct, they might be predictable in ways that more intelligent enemies would not be. As winter approached, the preparations intensified. Satellite networks were upgraded with dimensional sensors. Military bases worldwide received new equipment designed with dragon science. Secret training programs taught soldiers how to fight enemies that could phase between realities, but everyone knew that all their preparations might not be enough. The Void Swarm had destroyed countless worlds before reaching Earth. They had experienced fighting many different types of civilizations. Humanity had one advantage that previous victims had lacked: they were not fighting alone. For the first time in their history, the Void creatures would face two allied species working together. "We may not win," Admiral Minho said during a planning meeting, "but we will make them pay a price they have never paid before." Taeho, now serving as Earth's unofficial ambassador to the dragon family, looked out at his transformed ranch. 6 months ago, I was a simple farmer. Now I am helping prepare for the most important battle in the history of two worlds." The quiet life was gone forever, but in its place was something much more significant: hope that cooperation between species could overcome even the darkest threats in the universe. The early warning came at 3:47 a.m. on a cold February morning. Deep space sensors detected the first dimensional tears appearing near the edge of the solar system. The Void Swarm had arrived 6 months earlier than predicted. Admiral Minho was awakened by emergency alerts in his Seoul headquarters. Within minutes, he was connected to the command center at Taeho's ranch, now officially designated as Earth Defense Station Alpha. "How many?" he asked Captain Jinwoo. "At least 50 scout entities, sir. They are probing the outer dimensional barriers." "The main swarm is still coming through." The Admiral felt ice in his stomach. "How long do we have?" Valara answered through the communication system. "The scouts will reach Jupiter in 12 hours. The main swarm will follow within days." Around the world, the secret defense network activated. Soldiers who had trained for months in fighting interdimensional enemies moved to their positions. The dimensional fighter fleet launched from hidden bases. Cities activated their quantum shield generators. but everyone knew the real battle would be fought in the space between worlds, where human technology and dragon science would face their ultimate test. Lieutenant Commander Eugene Park climbed into her dimensional fighter at the primary launch facility. She was leading the first squadron of human pilots who had learned to fly in multiple dimensions. Her wingmates were the best pilots Earth had to offer, but they were about to face an enemy unlike anything in human experience. "Remember your training," she told her squadron over the radio. "These creatures can phase in and out of our reality. They feed on energy and matter equally. Do not let them get close to your ships." The first contact happened near Jupiter's orbit. The Void Scouts appeared as dark shapes that seemed to exist only partially in normal space. They moved in patterns that hurt to look at, flowing like liquid shadow between dimensions. "Engaging first contact," Eugene reported. "They are unlike anything we simulated." The human fighters opened fire with quantum disruptors. The weapons, designed with dragon science, created bursts of energy that could damage creatures existing in multiple dimensions. Several scouts were hit and dissolved into nothingness, but the void entities adapted quickly. They began phasing more rapidly, making themselves harder to target. When they counterattacked, their weapons drained energy directly from the human ships. "They are learning from us," Eugene warned. "They adapt to our weapons in real time." The first engagement was a tactical victory for Earth, but it came at a cost. 3 human fighters were lost when void creatures attached themselves to the ships and drained their power cores. The pilots were rescued, but the message was clear. Conventional tactics would not be enough. Back at the ranch, Nyx was working frantically with human engineers to improve their weapons. The young dragon had been studying battle recordings from the first encounter. "The Dark Ones think in patterns," she told Dr. Xianho. "They learn like machines, but they do not create like living things do." "What do you mean?" the weapons designer asked. "They copy what works, but they cannot imagine what has never existed before. Humans are different. You make new things that nobody has ever seen." This observation led to a breakthrough. If the void creatures could only copy and adapt existing patterns, then constantly changing tactics might confuse them. "We need to be unpredictable," Admiral Minho declared. "No standard formations, no repeated attack patterns. Every engagement must be different from the last." The second battle occurred near Mars. This time, the human forces included dragon-piloted fighters alongside human crews. Vicaron and Valara had insisted on joining the battle, despite their injuries from the destruction of their home world. The combined fleet used the new strategy of chaotic creativity. Human pilots flew in patterns that seemed random but were actually coordinated through quantum entanglement systems designed by dragon science. They attacked from multiple dimensions simultaneously, using weapons that changed their behavior mid-flight. The void creatures were confused by the unpredictable tactics. They tried to adapt, but every time they learned one pattern, the human dragon forces switched to something completely different. "It is working," Vicaron reported. "They cannot copy what they cannot understand." But the main swarm was still coming. The scouts had been defeated, but they had sent information back to the primary force. Now the real invasion began. The void entities that emerged from the dimensional tiers were larger and more powerful than the scouts. They moved in coordinated swarms that darkened space itself. Where they passed, the very fabric of reality began to dissolve. "Count them," Admiral Minho ordered. The numbers were terrifying. Thousands of void creatures, each the size of a small moon, were pouring through dimensional portals. Behind them came even larger entities that seemed to exist as pure hunger. Given form, Earth's combined fleet moved to intercept them between Mars and Earth. Every ship humanity had built, enhanced with dragon technology, joined the battle. The dimensional fighters, quantum destroyers, and reality anchor ships formed a defensive line in space. The battle was unlike anything in human or dragon history. It was fought across multiple dimensions simultaneously, with weapons that could destroy matter and energy alike. Ships appeared and disappeared as they phased between realities. Energy beams that could cut through planets crossed with creatures that existed as living void. Yujin found herself in the middle of the greatest dogfight ever fought. Her squadron was outnumbered 50-1, but they had one advantage: the void creatures could not copy pure human stubbornness. "They think we should retreat," she told her wingmates as they dove through a swarm of void entities. "But humans do not know how to retreat when our families are threatened." The battle raged for 18 hours. Earth's fleet was pushed back steadily, but they made the void creatures pay for every mile. For the first time in their existence, the void swarm was taking heavy casualties, but the numbers were too great. Despite their best efforts, the human dragon forces were being overwhelmed. The main void swarm was breaking through the defensive line, heading directly for Earth. "Fall back to the home system," Admiral Minho ordered. "All units, prepare for final defense." As the surviving Earth ships retreated toward their home planet, Yujin looked back at the advancing void swarm. They had bought time, but it might not be enough. "This is not over," she whispered to herself. "Whatever it takes, we will protect our world." The final battle would be fought in Earth's orbit, with the planet itself as the prize. Every human and dragon on Earth knew that if they lost this fight, both species would face extinction, but they also knew something the void creatures did not. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the future. A friendship between two worlds, and that was worth any sacrifice. The final battle began at dawn on Earth's darkest day. The void swarm had broken through the outer defenses and was approaching the planet itself. Dark shapes filled the sky as creatures of pure hunger prepared to consume another world. But Earth was not like the other worlds the void had destroyed. This planet had something unique. Two species working together with desperate creativity. At the ranch that had started it all, Taeho stood in the main command center watching the battle unfold. On screens around the world, cities activated their shield generators. The remaining space fleet fought desperately in orbit. Soldiers with quantum weapons took positions on every continent. "The shields are holding," reported Dr. So-young from her position at the Defense Coordination Center. "But they will not last long against this many attackers." Villara and Necaron stood beside the human commanders, their great forms tense with concentration. They were preparing for the most difficult task of their lives. "Are you certain this will work?" Admiral Minho asked the dragon parents. "No," Villara replied honestly, "but it is our only chance. The portal at this location is the key to everything. If we can reverse its function, we can trap the entire swarm in a dimensional pocket." The plan was desperate and dangerous. Instead of the void creatures consuming Earth's reality, the dragons would create a pocket dimension around the swarm and collapse it. But the process required enormous energy and someone to maintain the barrier from inside the pocket. "We will not survive this," Necaron said quietly. "The energy required will consume us completely." Nyx made a sound of distress. She understood what her parents were planning to do. "There must be another way," So-young protested. "We can find a different solution." "There is no time," Villara said gently. "The swarm is too large and too hungry. This is the only way to save both our peoples." High above the planet, Lieutenant Commander Yujin was leading the last desperate defense of Earth's orbital space. Her squadron had been reduced to just 5 fighters, but they continued to harass the void creatures with unpredictable attacks. "They are breaking through the upper atmosphere," she reported. "I can see them starting to feed on the orbital stations." The void entities were beginning to consume Earth satellites and space installations. Each meal made them stronger and more aggressive. Time was running out. At the ranch, the final preparations were complete. The dragon parents had positioned themselves at the exact center of the original portal site. Human technicians had surrounded them with every piece of dimensional equipment they had built together. "Remember," Taeho said to everyone in the command center, "this started with a simple choice to help strangers who needed shelter. Now it ends with those same strangers saving all of us." The dimensional inversion process began. Energy readings at the ranch climbed to impossible levels. The air itself began to shimmer and bend as reality was twisted into new shapes around the world. The effect was immediately visible. The attacking void creatures slowed their assault, confused by the changing dimensional patterns. The barriers between realities were shifting in ways they had never experienced. "It is working," Dr. Hyjin reported from her monitoring station. "The pocket dimension is forming around the main swarm, but the process was taking too long." Some of the void creatures were adapting to the changed conditions and resuming their attack on Earth cities. That was when young Nyx made her own choice. "I am going with them," she announced, moving toward her parents. "No," Valara said firmly. "You must live. You are the future of our people." "I am the future of both our peoples," Nyx replied. "And I will not let that future be built on the sacrifice of my family." Before anyone could stop her, the young dragon joined her parents at the center of the dimensional field. Her energy added to theirs, stabilizing the pocket dimension and accelerating the process. "And YX, what are you doing?" So Young called out. "I'm choosing to be like humans," Nyx replied. "I'm choosing to be unpredictable." But instead of condemning herself to die with her parents, Nyx did something no one expected. She used her unique understanding of both human technology and dragon science to modify the dimensional field. Instead of requiring the dragons to remain in the collapsing pocket, she created a buffer zone that would allow them to escape at the last moment. "Impossible," breathed Dr. Xianho, watching the energy readings. "She is rewriting the fundamental equations in real time." The pocket dimension expanded rapidly, engulfing the entire void swarm. The creatures found themselves trapped in a space that was slowly collapsing in on itself. They tried to phase out, but the dimensional barriers were sealed by dragon science enhanced with human ingenuity. As the pocket began to collapse, the dragon family activated their escape mechanism. They phased back into normal space just as the dimensional prison snapped shut with a sound like the universe itself sighing in relief. The void swarm was gone. Trapped forever in a pocket of collapsing space-time. They would never threaten another world around Earth. The surviving human defenders looked up to see clear skies for the first time in days. The dark shapes that had filled the heavens were gone. "Did we win?" Yujin asked from her battered fighter. "We won," Admiral Minho confirmed. "The threat is over." At the ranch, 3 dragons lay exhausted but alive beside the portal that had started everything. Human medics rushed to help them while scientists checked the dimensional readings. "The pocket is stable," So Young reported. "The void creatures cannot escape, and the barrier will hold for millions of years." Teho knelt beside Nyx the Young dragon who had saved 2 worlds with her creativity. "How did you know it would work?" "I learned from humans," Nyx replied weakly. "You taught me that sometimes the impossible becomes possible when you refuse to give up." In the months that followed, Earth transformed once again. The secret of the dragons was revealed to the world, and humanity welcomed their new allies with celebration and wonder. The ranch became the Interdimensional Institute, where both species worked together to explore the universe and protect other worlds from similar threats. Nyx became the first dragon-human ambassador, helping to integrate the 2 species permanently. She split her time between Earth and rebuilding the Crystal Realm, which could now be safely restored in a dimension protected by the Alliance. 5 years later, Grand Admiral So Young, now commander of the Combined Human-Dragon Defense Force, stood in the memorial garden at the ranch. The garden honored all those who had died in the war, but also celebrated the friendship that had made victory possible. "It all started with my father making a simple choice," she said to the crowd gathered for the anniversary celebration. "He chose to help strangers who needed shelter. That choice saved 2 civilizations and opened the door to the stars." Teho, now in his 70s but still spry, smiled as he watched human children playing with young dragons in the fields where the portal had first opened. The quiet ranch had become the center of interstellar civilization, but it still felt like home. "I was just a farmer," he said to So Young. "I never imagined that helping 3 refugees would change the fate of the galaxy." "That is humanity's greatest strength," Valara said, joining the conversation. Her injuries had healed completely, and she now served as Earth's ambassador to other dimensional realms. You help first and ask questions later. You see people in need and cannot turn away. As the sun set over the ranch, portal stabilizers hummed quietly in the background, connecting Earth to a dozen friendly dimensions. Trade ships from other worlds landed in the expanded spaceport. Children of multiple species learned together. In schools that taught both human creativity and dragon wisdom, the Unreal Ranch, as it had come to be known, was no longer just a farm. It was the symbol of what could be accomplished when different peoples chose cooperation over fear, friendship over suspicion, and hope over despair. The dragon family had indeed changed the fate of the ranch forever, but it was a human farmer's simple act of kindness that had made it all possible. In the end, that was the most human thing of all, the willingness to help a stranger. Even when the cost was unknown and the consequences unpredictable, the universe was a vast and dangerous place, but it was also full of possibilities for those brave enough to open their doors to the unknown.